the best for last, and this particular topic has been a hot one, as you know, over the last 12 months with all of the changes that took place last year. And what's exciting about today's session is we're going to be sharing with you some of the best practices. You've already navigated the changes, so there's no point in talking about the changes, but what we're going to share today is the best ways to run the buyer process so that way buyers fully understand your value and you get paid what you're worth. I think one of the things that you'll appreciate, and Nick, I know you know this because you've been keeping an eye on your buyer commissions and your agents' buyer commissions as well. We just took a look at our buyer agent commissions in the last quarter of 24 versus the last quarter of 23. Back in 23, when there were no changes to the way commissions are done. And today, this last quarter of 24, our average commission was 2.86%. Now, a lot of people, that might not mean much to you because you don't know what it was. All right, I'll share that in a second. Of course, I'm going somewhere with this. Our average commission in the last quarter of 2024 on the buy side was 2.86%. That was just this past quarter. That's just after all the changes, after NAR says commissions are coming down and all the media says commissions are coming down, 2.86%. The same time period a year prior, so the fourth quarter of 2023, 2.61%. So we went from 2.61 to 2.86 at a time when everyone said commissions are supposed to be coming down. How did we do that? Well, we changed our buyer process. And of course, as you guys know, especially if this isn't your first time to a Glover U session, by the way, if you're a first timer to a Glover U webinar, or even if you're not a first timer, let us see it in the chat. Go ahead and throw in the chat where you're joining us from today. Before you do, make sure you change it to everyone, not just hosts and panelists. All right. It defaults to everyone. It defaults to hosts and panelists. Change that to everyone so everyone can see where you're joining us from. Yes, Lisa, actually it's orange. I just came from the Glover Agency sales meeting and they referred to me, they put a picture side by side with me and Travis Kelce. So I don't know, I'm kind of okay with that comparison, I guess, although he didn't win a Super Bowl and we'd like to think we're winning the Super Bowl of real estate. All right, so good to see everybody. All right, Texas in the house, California, thanks for waking up early all over the country. We got Canada in the house. Thank you so much. Jersey, welcome. All right, we got some Philly in the house. Congrats on the win this past Sunday. I got a feeling our Detroit Lions are going to be a force to be reckoned with next year. You know, there's always next year, Nick. That's like every year as a Lions fan. That's what we're saying. There's always next year. But this is like the first time in my life where I can say I actually believe. You know, I said it last year too, by the way. Anyway,
we're never in a better position to win, in all fairness. Just like buyer's agent.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Nick.
I would say as Detroit Lions, we've never been in a better position to win. Like we have made such, and hey, buyer's agent, same thing. They've never been in a better position to win than a lot of the factors going on in the markets right now. So there's a lot to be excited about for the Lions. There's a lot to be excited about for agents out there.
Yeah, there sure is. So, all right, you heard the commission difference, and where I was going with this was the process that we're using to help buyers understand the value in paying us full commission. And yes, that means in some cases we're collecting a commission from the buyer at closing if the seller wasn't willing to pay the amount that we deserve. Now, because this is a training seminar, I can't make a recommendation. Nick can't make a recommendation on what you should charge. You all know what you're worth. Your broker probably sets that commission or makes a recommendation. I was just sharing with you our averages of the last quarter of 24 versus the last quarter of 23. And the fact that it is up when a lot of people are down should give you every reason why it makes sense to tune into what we're sharing today. So first things first, for those that are not familiar, my name is Jeff Glover from Detroit, Michigan. If you couldn't tell, I've been listing and selling real estate now for 22 years. I still work with buyers and sellers. I'm still in the trenches with you. In fact, as soon as we're done with this webinar, I'm going to meet a seller who also has to buy. So I know exactly what you're experiencing on that side of the business, and I know Nick does as well. So a couple things before we get to today's topic. I want to make sure you got a handful of our most important free resources. First things first, everyone on here by now, especially if you've been through our other webinars, because this is our 7th and final, everyone should have access to the daily message. If you are wondering where today's daily message is, it's coming. Our marketing team is in a meeting all morning, so they haven't sent it out yet, but it is in progress. Anyways, every day, every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every Thursday, every Friday, I'm writing a message specifically designed to help you list and sell more real estate. You should be taking advantage of that. It's free. How you sign up for it is you take out your cell phones. This is for my first timers. All right. If you've been through this before, just sit tight for a second. My first timers, you're going to type the phone number 55444. Okay. I know it's only 5 digits, but it works. That's 55444. And in the body of the message, you're going to type morning, MORNING. In the body of the message, hit send, just like that. And you'll be signed up for the daily message. That's going to bring you to my second resource, which is going to kick back a link to the Glover U app. And for those of you that are already on the daily message, but maybe you don't have the app on your phone, it's super simple. You just search Glover U in your app store. You want to have that in your possession because every quarter now we're releasing new resources and tools to use in your business. These are the same ones that I'm using in mine. Take advantage of them. That's the Glover U app. Download that in your app store. That's the second resource. The third resource is the Glover U 2025 business plan. We're giving that away for free. Not only am I giving you a PDF copy of the plan, but I'm giving you a 90-minute instructional video to go along with it. Just search gloveru.com/plan. That's GLOVER, the letter U, /plan. That gets you your hands, that gets you the 90-minute video, as well as in the video, in the remarks or whatever, it'll give you the PDF. Just click on that, it'll take you right to the plan. All right, those are the 3 resources. Speaking of resources, today there's a workbook. You see they just dropped that in the chat. So make sure you get your hands on the workbook. There it is one more time, because there's other resources in that workbook that I have not mentioned, and I want you to have your hands on them. So before we transition into today's topic, Nick not only has a background, how many years selling real estate, Nick?
This is my 24th year. It'll be 25 coming up here at the end of the summer.
24 years selling real estate, and Nick was actually the very first buyer's agent ever. Back in the day, it wasn't even called, today it's Glover Agency. Before that, it was Jeff Glover and Associates. And before that, it was the Jeff Glover team. So we didn't have all these fancy names. Quite honestly, we probably didn't even have like an LLC set up at the time when you joined the Jeff Glover team as the first buyer's agent. So if there's anyone in our world that has seen more of our buyer process evolve through the years, it's this guy. Not only has he been involved on our team, but he also is running a successful team on the west side of the state, which is a very buyer heavy team. So when I think of, okay, who do I want to put in front of my agents on the buy side? Who do I want to share with my agents what it's going to take to convert more buyers and get paid what we're worth on the buy side? I think of Nick Bellmore. So you're in the right place if you're looking to get paid more on the buy side and you're looking to close more buyer deals. So Nick, take it away.
Thank you. Okay, so a couple of things that I want to dive into, because really important for everybody out there. I think we're all seeing it. The market is different. And usually when I start to engage in these conversations, it comes with a little bit of pessimism. I mean, people will tell me, yeah, I mean, this is a much harder time. But in all reality, for us on the buy side, it's getting easier and easier. And one of the reasons why I say that, even though we're looking at a different rate than we were 24 months ago, no doubt about that. But the reality is, we're not facing the stiff competition every time we make an offer today like we were back then. So, in all reality, for a lot of buyers agents out there, now is a better time to get more offers accepted because we're so often putting in less showings and less work into those offers.
Yeah.
And while Jeff's 1,000 times right, I am not going to spend all day diving into commission percentages and negotiations. I want to at least mention this for us on my team, and I want to talk about what our experience is. Since the rules have changed, we have had 99% of the sellers ready to go in paying a commission. We are not involved in fierce negotiations. I'm not saying it doesn't exist somewhere in a microcosm out in the country, but I can tell you, at least in our marketplace, the sellers still understand the value that comes along with paying a buyer's agent. So is there some more negotiation today at times? Absolutely. But the idea that they don't want to pay us and that it's harder to collect a paycheck today than it was 24 months ago, I'm 100% going to disagree with that statement.
Yeah. And Nick, there's one thing you said in there that I want to point out to everyone, that when the market gets softer, our value increases as an agent. So there's a lot of news right now about interest rates are not looking sexy. There's a lot of news right now that things are kind of flat, or we're seeing price reductions in other markets across the country. At the end of the day, the softer the market, I just kind of internally, whenever I hear negative news, I kind of internally say, yes, yes. Because the softer the market, the more our value increases, the more buyers and sellers value what we do. This is a good thing.
And honestly, just to show how full circle this is, when I originally started with you, Jeff, that was a soft market. And I came into it very fearful. And the experience with you, the training completely changed my mindset. And that's why I'm excited today, because I see a lot of those same factors coming up
Yeah.
in the market. And for skilled agents, and listen, if you're on this webinar right now, you're clearly interested in building skills. You're clearly interested in learning more. And for skilled agents, there is an unfair advantage when there's turbulence in the market. So I love that.
Yeah.
Let me take a second because I want to talk about just a few of the things that have changed and the opportunity that they brought up. And then I'm
Yep.
going to talk a little bit about what a lot of people are struggling with today, and that's generating enough leads to hit their goals. So let me start in the beginning. What changed? In the last 24 months or so, we were looking at an average interest rate of anywhere between 4 and 4.25. That was mainly what our buyers were operating with. Today, we're looking at about a 7% interest rate. At its peak, we ended up at about 8.25. But on average, across the country, a lot of us are dealing with the low sevens, the high sixes, somewhere
Yep.
in that zone. So that's definitely been a change. Another thing, a good chunk of us today are seeing inventory really start to grow. Now, if you're in Texas, if you're in Florida, you're definitely feeling that conversation. Some of us in the Midwest, it maybe hasn't grown as much as some of those areas, but we're absolutely starting to see more inventory out there. And obviously that plays into it. Not only that, there's more days on market when we start to look at the average sale. So there's a lot more opportunity for us to get to a sale without competing against other agents. One more thing that has changed, and we have seen the lowest amount of sales nationwide in what is it, 24 years or so. Since 1995, actually, I think was the last time there was this many units sold. And so, what does that mean? And really, what opportunities does that create is the real question. Well, for the most part, that creates a ton of opportunities for the skilled agent that knows how to give value into their buyers and knows how to really make sure they're identifying the buyers that have the strongest need to move at this time. Oh, by the way, we used to have to write 3 offers to get one accepted. Now, I would say 85% of my agents are getting their first offer accepted as they
Yeah.
go through this process. Are you seeing the same
Yeah.
thing?
We're seeing pockets of prices. We're seeing like three different things. All right. We're still seeing multiple offer situations in certain areas, certain price points.
Let's do.
And then we're seeing kind of flat where maybe one or two offers you're competing with. And then we're seeing in a lot of markets prices coming down. So it's like kind of three things are going on at one time right now, which is unique. You normally have like one or two things going on, not three things going on.
Absolutely. And so it really does put us in that position where understanding and knowing those differences gives a ton of value to the buyers we're working with. So, really, what are some of the challenges that we face as agents today? And a lot of these really are skill-based challenges. There's a little more fear out there for the buyers. So, understanding and helping them, I should say, coming to the conclusion of why now is really a great time for them to own, for them to buy. That's an important thing. I would say this too, and this is kind of going to lead me into my next conversation. It takes a little more effort to generate the buyer lead today than it did 18 or 24 months ago. Buyers, less people are qualified, so not as many buyers are rushing to us. And so, what does that mean? And where's the opportunity really exist? For the agent that's willing to go out there and to dive into lead generation, to have a strong schedule, you are absolutely going to come up with more opportunity while a lot of other agents are waiting on the sideline, waiting for that phone to ring in and come to them. So that's one of those places where I want to spend some time today and talk a little bit about how we generate leads in a market like this.
Perfect.
Okay, so a couple of things. Now, one of the things that happens, Jeff, you know how I am. I've got about 90 minutes of content to jam into the next 40 minutes. So what
Yep.
I'm going to do, I'm going to touch base on some of the things that I have in my notes here today. I'm going to spend a little more time on some, but I want to take a minute because in Buyer Business Accelerator, we're going to spend 3 days on lead generation. We're going to
Okay.
get into the different sources, but not like I am today, where I'm going to talk a
Yeah.
little bit. We're going to go in depth. So if I don't give as much information on some of these sources today, I apologize in advance. There's only so much time to get in here. But
Yep.
right now, having more pillars of lead generation in your business absolutely can make the difference.
All right. Let's get into them.
All right, first one I want to talk about. A lot of us are involved in this, especially if you're on this webinar, agent to agent referrals. Oh, by the way, I'm in Grand Rapids. Love you guys. So, with that being the case, what does your plan look like, and how are we working agent to agent referrals? And one of the first things that I tell agents when we start to get into this conversation, really identify where people are moving from in your marketplace. That's why I love you guys in Detroit. You are our biggest customer out here in Grand Rapids, followed up by Chicago. So love you, Chicago realtors too. But understanding where people are coming from is really going to help you target and develop relationships and
Mhm.
reputation with the realtors in those areas. So that's absolutely an important piece of it.
And by the way, if you're wondering where to find that information, you can just do a simple Google search
Mhm.
and it'll spit out AI. Google has a little AI feature now. It'll spit out all the answers. In 2024, more buyers move from these 5 areas to Knoxville, right? And you can literally just get specific with the question, what 5 states move the most to Ohio? What 5 states move the most to Tennessee? Whatever. You can get the list that way. Just by simple.
Also, one more thing I'll add to that when it comes to resources. This might freak out some of my tinfoil hat friends out there, but CIA.gov puts out what they call a migration report. So if you go onto that website, they talk about the regions in the nation and where they're moving. Now, it's not as up to date as everything out there. It might be a year or two that lags behind, but it really shows unbelievable data for migration trends within the country. And there's a great chance that there's still some validity, even if it's 2 years old, on that data on that site. So definitely worth taking a look at. It's another great resource out there, and we don't pay a dime. Well, I mean, I guess tax-wise we do, but we don't have to pay a dime to get access to that information. So I absolutely love that. So
Yep.
again, building your reputation and really becoming associated with your area. And what's great about it is something that's going to give a ton of value when we start to get into agent to agent referrals.
The number one thing in terms of value, are you done on agent to
Yep.
referrals? I just want
All
to
right.
add one more thing. Yeah. So I get asked all the time, Jeff, so should I set agents up like on a drip campaign, or if I'm setting buyers and sellers up on what's going on in, say, Detroit, or in your case, Grand Rapids, should I set agents up on that too? The answer is no. No one cares what's happening in your town if they're listing and selling real estate in another town. Stop sending stuff like, hey, market update for, Cleveland, Ohio. I don't care in Detroit. All right. Now, what I do care about, though, as an agent is give me information, give me value that I can use that helps my business. So every time Glover U has a webinar, for instance, every time Glover U has a summit or a retreat, every time Glover U has a half-day session in your town, I mean, we're always going to do 17 ways to build a big listing inventory or 9 ways to close more buyer transactions. Take those 9 ways, and for the next 9 weeks, that's your email campaign to your agent-to-agent database. You want to get more agent-to-agent referrals? Send them something of value about how they can grow their business. You can take our stuff. You can give us credit. You don't have to give us credit, whatever. You can say, hey, just got back from a Glover event, and he talked about the 11 ways to sell 100 homes per year. And for the next 11 weeks, you're sending 1 email per week. That's value to me as a real estate agent. I don't care what conference you went to. I'm going to open it and read it.
One more thing I'll just add to that, Jeff, because one of the things that you do so well, and I try to emulate the same thing in my own business, you tie into your location. Like when I think of Jeff Glover, I'm definitely thinking of the Detroit Tigers. And while you don't have to be a sponsor at that same level, we can promote what's local in our area. Here in West Michigan, I'm promoting the Griffins, our local hockey team. I'm promoting the Whitecaps, our baseball team. The more we really represent for our area, the more we are going to become associated with that. And
Yeah.
without a doubt, while we shouldn't be spamming people with information about Grand Rapids, our social media presence is absolutely going to convey that as our audience is taking a look and paying attention, just like I do for you, baseball and all that other stuff that you guys do in Detroit. And I love it.
That's right. Yeah, when we put stuff out about Detroit, it's for buyers and sellers in Detroit, not necessarily for agents. You want to get more agents to pay attention to your stuff, start sending them stuff of value that'll help them grow their business.
Okay, number two on the list, and it's definitely something that we got to talk about because I think there's some value shifting in this source. That's internet leads. And we know there's a top. I mean, we could do an entire 45 minutes on internet leads, but I want to touch on some of the most important pieces because I think buyers agents out there today are seeing a little bit of diminished volume and a little bit of diminished value in those internet leads. However, if you still want this to be a profitable source, we have to focus on a couple of important things. And one of them is serious, intense follow up when that lead comes in. Speed to lead is definitely an important piece, but really, attrition after the lead comes in is just as important. So, if you've been to my classes, if you've heard some of these webinars, I'm talking about the 3x3x3 method because we have to make sure that we are making contact with that lead while the time is really the most valuable. And that's the very beginning when they inquire. So that's a huge piece of diving into internet leads and getting more value out of them today. One more thing I would say with this, and we talk about this a lot in the class too, send them a video right out of the gate. Now, it's great to call, it's great to text. Emails definitely, can be a crowded space sometimes. We're not always getting the open rate we want to see on emails. But I will tell you, when we send videos, those buyers are taking a look. And while I might not always just get an instant response to the video, what I do find is with the follow-up phone calls that come with the 3x3x3, I've demystified, I've taken a lot of the fear out when they've gotten to see my face and hear my cadence and know that I'm not maybe a telemarketer in another country that's calling in on behalf. They know that I'm someone, I'm local, I'm a real person, and I absolutely think that helps to get into the conversation it takes to begin to convert that lead more often and more quickly. So definitely an important one. Okay, let's keep it moving in our lead sources. Okay, Lisa did ask to explain the 3x3, so let me just take a quick moment and dive into that. For those of you that aren't familiar, the 3x3x3 consists of 3 phone calls, 3 texts, and 3 emails within the first 3 days. Why are we hitting them with such volume? Because we know that it's 5 to 6 before we even start attempts, before we even start to get responses. And a lot of our responses are coming at attempt 7 and 8. So we want to get 9 attempts to have a conversation to connect with that buyer within the first 3 days because we're playing the numbers. And we know this is a numbers game. And the more we reach out, the more we connect, the stronger our conversion is going to be when it comes to internet leads. So love that question. Obviously, in
Calls, 3
addition,
texts, 3 emails, all in 3 days. And I know a lot of people think like that's overly aggressive, but you have to understand with how many notifications we get on our phone today, uh, you're the only one keeping score. They're not paying attention to how many times you called, texted, and emailed them. They're not like when I follow up on a lead, they're not like, this is the 6th time you've reached out to me. They have no idea. You're just trying to catch them at the right time. So I know 3 calls, 3 texts, 3 emails within 3 days sounds aggressive. It's not. And it's not aggressive because of all the notifications they get today. All of your notes and messages just blend in. So I'm just trying to catch them at the right time. And the 333 improves the odds of that happening.
Absolutely, it does. And the reality is this, the most common response I get when we implement this program, oh, Nick, I got your messages. We just got really busy. Yeah, we're looking in X. This is what we want. I'm never like, oh, hey, Nick, you've been calling me for the last 3 days. This is so annoying. It's usually a positive response, and they'll reference having seen my attempts, but will usually just tell me what's going on in their lives. And listen, a lot of us probably get that too, right? You're out taking care of the household. A lot of us have kids and we're dropping them off to practice, doing all these things. There's a million distractions in life, and that's why persistence is truly the key as a buyer's agent. I would say, as a real estate agent in general, the more you're going to practice persistence, the stronger your production is going to be.
Mhm. Without question.
Okay, I'm going to move on to another subject and I'm going to talk about this. And some of you guys might go, oh man, that seems so old school. But what is old comes back around, and buyer seminars are definitely one of those things coming back. So, why are buyer seminars valuable today? And I'll tell you, because there's not a fierce competition like there was, and buyers want to understand the process and ultimately the value in the options out there. Now, in the old days, when I very first started doing this, you had to have a location. I mean, you had to really, it was a lot of times an office, or it would be a local restaurant. Or, of course, one of the things that I even used to do is use the public libraries. And a lot of times you can have a conversation with the library and they'll let you host an event, especially if it's respectful and tucked away. Today, it's not the case. Today, just like you guys are out here learning this, Zoom is a great way to bring people in and be able to have that value brought. And again, it's less of a commitment. So they don't have to go through, jump in the car, figure out where the place is, make the whole trip over there. Today, having these online is absolutely a giant win. And the other thing is, we have so many more routes to promote this, and especially to promote it for free. I can tell you, in the old days, I would go old school and we'd be mailing out postcards, inviting people to come to the buyer seminar. Even back then, a stamp was 50 cents. Today, it's even crazier than that, obviously, as a lot of us know. But it was still a much higher cost compared to even running meta ads today and letting people know. One more thing that we talk about, and I do this because I kind of stumbled across this. I want as many people to know about it as possible. One of the things that we're doing in our area for buyer seminars, we've connected with the school system. And so we work in my area with the Caledonia Resource Center, and we put it on through the school. And of course, that just gives it another layer of validity. Plus, in a lot of people's cities where they have, in our case, the resource center is more like adult style education versus promoting these classes to the kids. But 6,000 mailouts come out from them in the community promoting the course that we teach to give buyers more value. So I think that if you're not partnering with the resource centers or with the adult education within the school system in our areas, a lot of us are missing an amazing opportunity, not just to bring people into our funnel and answer their questions, but to truly even build our connection, our reputation, and our brand within our local communities, where we can really do just a lot of good, a lot of value in those systems. So, how do we do it? I'm going to tell you, this is another one where I could spend 30 minutes getting into the process. We will go in depth in the class in exactly how to connect, how to approach your local school system, where people are going to be looking for this service. Because I'll tell you, the one thing that blew my mind, the school did not see this as an imposition. They saw it as a value. They literally said to me, Nick, we've been looking for somebody to teach about real estate. We just don't have great resources available to us. So we're grateful to be able to put this in the catalog and offer it out to our audience. So definitely one to think about when it comes to buyer
Nice.
seminars.
Yeah. Yeah, and these are people that, even if they're not going to do anything with you right now, as you know, Nick, I know in your buyer business accelerator, you do the buyer seminars to, one, get immediate business, two, get referrals, and three, to get future business. Because anyone who's not going to buy with you right now, because they took the time to meet you and show up, they're without question a great candidate to add to your database for future business, future referrals. So buyer seminars are a great way to not only get immediate business, but also to add more people to your database for future.
Absolutely. And this is same thing, a little bit different. We touch on it in there. I also do new construction seminars because for a lot of people, just as many questions as there are about the first time buying process and going through it, a lot of people want to understand the landscape of new construction, especially if their equity is tied up in their current home and it might be 9 months until their custom home is built. They want to understand the best way and what their options are in that process. So, well, no question, a lot of our buyer seminars, when we start to think of them, we revert right into working with those first time buyers. But move up buyers, especially when it's not as straightforward as sell a house, pick a house, are looking for strategies too, and they're looking for options. I mean, really making yourself that new construction expert. I think we all know if you go to the new construction, you go to the builders, and you're looking to list their homes, their models, you're going to get a lot of pushback. You're going to get a lot of rejection in that space. Not everywhere, but for the most part, a lot of builders are resistant to working with us on the list side, but the builders love when we're going to bring them a buyer. So the more that we educate ourselves on their product and their locations, the easier it is to present that information to the buyer and be the liaison between that buyer and those builders locally. And we can start the whole thing with a seminar, just like we would with a first time buyer or an FHA buyer.
Makes sense.
Okay, I'm going to dive into the next one. I'll go a little bit quicker because I know I'm a teeny bit behind on it. Networking groups, right? There's still the same thing. I know a lot of people think of BNI. Shout out to my amazing one-on-one, Brian Gutierrez over there in Milford, Michigan. He works with so many of the local chamber of commerce, those different things. And one of the things that is really powerful about taking this into your buyer business is you truly begin to develop a lot of relationships. And especially if you're active in a lot of these groups, you're developing a lot of relationships that start with you contributing to them. And it absolutely leads you into a lot of local business owners, a lot of local prominent community citizens in that area, the whole entire thing. And it helps us to build an amazing database of people in our hometowns or in the towns surrounding us. So there's a ton of stuff when it comes to networking groups. There's a ton of ways to give back. One of the examples that I always talk about in this, for a lot of our Chamber of Commerce, they do ribbon cuttings and they do opening ceremonies for brand new businesses. Taking 30 minutes out of your day, especially if it fits into your schedule. That being said, I know own the morning, win the day. Don't take off at 9:30 in the morning for a ribbon cutting. But if
Yep.
one's out there at 3 o'clock and you don't have appointments, go and network. As business owners yourself, what does it mean to you when somebody takes some time out of their day to support what you're doing? And that's absolutely an underutilized factor when it comes to networking in a lot of these groups and especially chamber events. Every chamber, whether you remember or not, welcomes you to these openings of the businesses, that type of stuff. Now, if you want to take this to another level, start creating social media around these because, again, ton more value to that business owner, but also connecting you and your audience and showcasing your local areas and the value and knowledge that you have about what's going on in those areas. So, another great one, another super important one.
Yeah, the local business networks and the business networking international groups specifically, they're always looking for people to join. And the whole point of those groups is to refer business back and forth.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are enthusiastic about supporting your business within the group. And the more enthusiastic you are about helping others, no doubt it comes back to you tenfold. So I love those groups. I love ultimately the amount of possibility that's in there that we have with networking. Okay. Next topic we're going to dive into, and again, they're coming back. It's sign calls. Sign calls are without a doubt on the increase. At least here in my area, I've definitely seen it. A lot of people have gotten away from kind of how to work that sign call and
Yeah.
how to dive into that conversation because so many things have moved on to the internet. But today, there's a ton of opportunity in sign
Yeah.
calls.
The reason for that is because all the buzz in the media about buyers maybe having to pay their agent's commission and so forth. So a lot of buyers are really exhausting every option they have to try to get to the listing agent.
Yeah.
So without question, we're seeing an increase in direct calls from buyers about a listing. And just like open house traffic is up, that's all because buyers, want to go direct to the source versus dealing with maybe having to pay an agent a commission.
And I'll say this too, this is a skill issue. This is one of those things as an agent. How often are you role playing working that sign call? We have amazing scripts. Jeff talked about the app. They're available right there that you can dive into it. And in the class, quite honestly, we're going to break those scripts down. I'm going to talk to you about all the questions in those scripts and what the purpose of those questions are and how we use those questions to drive the conversation in the direction that's going to absolutely give the most value. One of the things that you'll notice as you look at the scripts that Jeff put together, they are all focused on three things when you look at those questions. They're looking at the person's motivation, the person's ability, and the person's timeline. And I do not want us to be really focused in considering that our buyer until we have an in-depth understanding of those three things as we go through the process. So definitely an important piece when it comes to sign calls, getting deep into it. Now, I will say this one more thing that we touch on, personality style, because of course, when we get into the sign calls, the more that we are like the person we're having that conversation with, the quicker we're going to get into rapport, and then the quicker we're going to get to their goals, and the more we're going to be able to serve that client. And no question about it, that is the ultimate value. Really quick stat that I pulled out, and there was a big study that was done by one of these lead companies recently, but they interviewed thousands and thousands of people. To this day, 56% of buyers are working with the first agent they meet, not the first agent they talk to. So let's be really clear about that. Not a matter of just a single conversation, but the first agent they meet. So when we are working our sign calls, when we're working any of these lead sources, I'm focusing heavier and heavier every single day on practicing the ALM model. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Jeff taught me this a couple of years ago. We integrated it in. It's been amazing. We're talking about the ALM model being about the appointment and setting it right away. Notice, I'm not saying don't qualify, but 56% are working with the first agent they meet. So we don't want to be pushing off having these meetings, having these conversations, building this rapport, showing our value. After that, the next thing in the ALM model that we're focused on is location. What's important about that location? And even more important than that, what other homes are they interested in? When we start to get to sign calls, when we start to get to internet leads, when we start to get to a lot of these lead sources, we know that's not the only house they probably clicked on or called on or were interested in. So the more that we have an understanding and we start to provide access to the homes they're interested in, the less they're going to be reaching out to our competitors in order to have that same conversation. So boom, appointment, I'm absolutely going to meet with you. Location, I'm going to have an understanding of what's important and what other homes in that area that you as the buyer are interested. And last but not least, it's the M. It's the motivation. Understanding our client's motivation is truly the key to giving them a great experience and giving them exactly what they're looking for from a buyer's agent. So diving in before we have an idea of motivation absolutely is going to be a mistake. We want to spend some time. We want to understand what that motivation is. And even deeper than that, what's important to them about the thing they're referencing as motivation.
So basically, we're not pushing for the buyer consultation. I know there was a lot of talk about, you're going to have to get an agreement signed now, so you better start doing buyer consultations. We're not doing that. We're pushing for the appointment first because they don't want to hear about your buyer consultation. They just want to see the house. And if you're not going to show it to them, they're going to take out their phone, open up the app, mess around, and they're going to get a showing set up. So just focus on getting in front of them, get the rapport built. Now, at some point, you're going to have to do the buyer contract or a one-day showing agreement or something to that effect, but don't bring that up in your initial call with them. That's going to scare them away.
That's so important. That's great advice. And I'm going to tell you, that's a conversation that I'm having with a lot of agents. A lot of agents are a little overzealous on that before they've shown the value. We can't ask them to commit to us when they don't understand the value that we provide. So a big chunk of what we're doing is absolutely going to be about going through and showing and providing that value. Oh, by the way, when I meet you at the appointment, listen, in the old days, Jeff, you probably remember this. the buyer consultation happened in my office, in the conference room, or we were face to face right in that. There's a whole new world out there of how we have buyer consultations. And obviously, we spend a good 2 days dissecting the buyer consultation and talking about it. But let me say this for those of you watching now, we don't have to have it directly in our office. And I'll tell you, I would say maybe less than 5% of my buyer consultations happen here at the office. A lot of them happen at a house that I'm meeting them at. A lot of them happen at the Starbucks or at the Panera Bread. Now, here's one of the things Jeff gave me, and I implemented this, and it's definitely made a difference. When I'm meeting at Starbucks, when I'm meeting at Panera, it's in the location that they're interested in. It's not
Yeah.
the closest to me. It's not the most convenient thing. No, if you are looking 30 minutes away from my office and we're going to meet at that Starbucks, that's where I'm going. I'm not just like, oh, let me find the one that's halfway between us. Why? I want to brand myself as the expert in the
Yeah.
area that they're interested in. So meeting them there is absolutely going to be one of my priorities, even if I had to drive an extra 10 to 15 minutes in order to make that happen. It's
Yeah.
definitely important. Implement that for you guys out there watching this for sure.
Yeah, and people are asking, well, where do we get the contract signed? On the hood of your car, in the
Yes.
driveway. That's the number one spot that we're getting it signed right now. If we don't get it signed in advance, because we send it to them in advance, but we're not pressuring them to get it signed to us before we meet them. We want to meet them first before we open the door.
Absolutely. That's why I love Panera Bread, because there's a great place to sit down. You're not taking anything away from a waitress. It's a quick serve place, and you can sit down and go over paperwork with them and make a presentation. And it's a great location. Any place that has a table that you can sit with them is definitely going to give you an advantage as you start to get into those presentations. That being said, not afraid to get it done at the kitchen counter if that's what we're going to do, or on the hood
On
of
the
the
hood of the
car.
car, on the hood of the
Yep,
car.
on the hood. Like, we want to make sure that we're getting it done on the spot as we're going through that process. Okay. I got a bunch more to get into, so let me go a little bit quicker. Next thing I want to touch base with on this is absolutely going to be your SOI, right? And I know this probably should have been number one if we're talking about volume out there in the real estate industry. It's a little bit further down on my list, but it's still one of the most important ones. And SOI is a big piece of what we talk about and how to engage them. And there's a couple of things that we want to focus on. Number one, we want to talk about the frequency of communication that we have. We're going to talk a lot about the value we bring. We're going to also talk a lot about ultimately how do we create a brand in social media where they're viewing all those different types of things. So strategy is a big piece of that. Reaching out and having those conversations with the people who know you, who like you, who trust you are absolutely going to be an important thing. Now, let me say what we're not teaching. We're not going to start pestering everybody we know, calling them up and going, hey, it's Nick, you want to buy a house? Hey, what about today? You interested in a house? No, we're going to absolutely make sure that we're leading with value, because they will tune us out if we don't start with giving them something they want, something they need, local value, market value, all those different pieces that they absolutely are going to focus on more. Okay, next one I want to talk about, and this ties right into SOI, social media. No doubt today, social media is such a game changer. It gives us so much reach. It lets us build a brand, and there's no question that video is a huge piece of that. And one of the things Kate Simon said to me years ago, and this has absolutely worked. I've put this into my social media game. Just document the things you're doing on a regular basis. Are you out there showing homes to your clients? Great. Take a minute and let people know you're out there, you're doing it. Let people know you're holding that open house. Showcase the things you're doing on a regular basis. You see a lot of those agents out there. Hey, another offer written. Maybe you, as the agent, perceive that as them bragging, but the public sees that as them in action and them doing the thing that they need on a daily basis. So, any part of your job as a realtor that you can catch a little bit of a day in the life, or here it's Nick in action, or of course, the other one that I love to do, showcasing inventory. What are some of the cool houses out there in your area, and how do we become associated with those things? And by the way, what happens? Your SOI sees that. They're interested in that house because of the acreage, and boom, a direct message comes in. Hey, Nick, would we be able to tour that? Absolutely. And again, ALM, right? So I'm getting right out there. I want to understand what's going on, what's important about that location. What got you guys thinking about moving this time? This is going to up your game when it comes to social media marketing. One more, I'm going to speed us through on this one, open houses. And I feel terrible because we've got a few minutes and I literally have a 40-minute presentation about best practices in doing open houses. So just know this. When you guys get into the class, this will be a good two-thirds, three-quarters of a single class where we talk about best practice. Because right now, there's absolutely one place a buyer doesn't feel they have to give a commitment in order to come and meet you, and that is an open house. So we are going to see a lot more volume in open houses as we start to go forward. And how you hold the open house is very, very important, but not just that. It's also about what happens after the open house. If they went to three, how are you differentiating your experience from those other agents out there? A lot of agents, just as one point in here, a lot of agents, they're doing what? They're having that open house maybe on a Saturday afternoon, and then Monday morning, they're on the phone checking. By Monday morning, they're at work. You're leaving a message. A lot of my agents are reaching out maybe an hour and a half after the open house. It makes them first. It also, a lot of times, they're presenting other options. Hey, if you like that one, or if you didn't, here's three or four other ones locally. Do you want to get out, take a look, see if those might be a fit for you? No question that there is a ton that goes into open houses today. If you're going out and you're putting out two or three signs and you're grabbing a clipboard for a sign-in sheet and that's your open house, it's better than nothing, but you're leaving a ton of business, of money, of opportunity on the table by not going through and putting together all the best practices. And really, as Taylor would say, turning your open house into an event. Oh, by the way, and this is definitely a buyer's class, but do you think sellers aren't paying attention to how you hold that open house? If you've got one sad balloon and one sign sitting out front for your open house, is there anybody going to be impressed by that marketing? No. We have to make sure that we are going an extra level when it comes to open houses today.
Yeah, and I think when I just think of the buyers, they're exhausting all options to find out about real
Yeah.
estate. So they are without question going to more open houses than they ever have before. We have people right now in the Glover U system that are literally writing plans to host between 50 and 100 open houses this year in 2025 because of how much we've seen an increase in traffic. Now, I know that sounds a lot when you think about there's only 52 weekends. Jeff, I don't want to work every weekend. No, they're not either. They're not working every other week. They're not working every weekend. They're doing 3 or 4 per weekend. They're doing 3 or 4 on a weekend and then taking the next week off. And then they're doing 3 or 4 and then taking the next weekend off. So you can do shorter open houses and increase your frequency on them to get in front of more buyers.
Absolutely. That's such an important point, and it's definitely one of those things that you see the difference. Agents that go through and make their open house an event just have a night and day difference in results than agents that maybe don't even tell anybody about the open house until the morning that it's actually starting. We're talking about 3, 4 days in advance. We want to start promoting our open houses so that we're getting maximum participation.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, I'm going to take a few quick
You can
steps.
do an open house for the neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
That's exclusive to the neighbors only. That's going to help you generate more seller business.
It's one of the things we talk
You
about
can
too.
obviously do an open house as part of your coming soon, so long as your state allows you to do that. But yeah, there's that is becoming, as crazy as it sounds, it's such a traditional technique. The effectiveness of open house is actually increasing as technology increases because more and more buyers are exhausting all resources.
What's old is new, and it always comes back, right? And listen, good service never goes out of style. The more we make an impact, the stronger that is, the more results we're going to see. Okay, next on my list, community events. I'm going to spend just a quick minute. We do go more in depth on this one, but community events are a great way to build our client list and really connect with people in the community. Just like the chamber, going through and putting together local events. And I'll tell you, one of the things we do to really transition this, we give away a prize, and the cost of entry is simply your name, your email, your phone number, and your address. And it's allowed us to build an amazing database of people. And guess what we did? We took some advice out there. Shout out to Andy Nelson out there, because we turned it into a hybrid farm. For the most part, instead of just focusing on a neighborhood, everybody participating in our community event, everybody that maybe would have registered for one of the prizes is absolutely now drawn into our conversation, drawn into our drip messaging, all that amazing stuff. Okay, last but not least, look at that, Jeff. 5, 6 minutes left. I came in almost on time. All right, the other thing that we're talking about today, and if you guys are out there looking at sources, I believe this is absolutely the future. Drawing in out-of-town buyers through video content is going to be a huge piece. Obviously, YouTube, second biggest search engine on the
Yeah.
planet. So where do people go? And this is really obvious, right? When they're moving from out of town, they can't just tour the open houses. They can't just drive through the neighborhood. If you're moving from Oklahoma and you're coming over here to Grand Rapids, the more content that I can create showcasing what our market's like, what the neighborhoods are like, all those different things,
Mhm.
the more we're going to start to draw in that
Yeah.
attention from those out of town buyers. What's the key here? The key here is not to make it about Nick. The key here is to make it about Grand Rapids. And the more we start to put out that content, now it's definitely strategy. There's no question that these videos need to give value to that prospective buyer or that buyer avatar, as we would say. Who are we making these things for? But there's no doubt that the more we start to create video content that is searchable, that is easily coming up for the people who are in that little niche of moving from out of town to our area. And we know
Yeah.
this too, right? A lot of times their research, it starts 6 months out from their move. So it really gives us an amazing opportunity to provide value and to build a brand with that audience of people that are immigrating in and moving to our area.
Well, and listen, I know that, for a lot of agents, they've embraced it and they're embracing it at a high level, and there's still some that are not. If you ever notice when you do a Google search today, after the little AI thing, the first links that come up are YouTube links, not website links, YouTube links, because Google owns YouTube. And so therefore they know the consumers, are responding better to videos. So they're sending consumers more video content than ever before. This is Google doing that. And so it's an opportunity for you as an expert in your market, in your neighborhood, in your community to share what's new restaurants, what's being built, new developments. Get the reputation out as someone. You don't have to get your reputation out as the top buyer's agent in the market. You just have to get your reputation out as someone who knows the market. And when I say
Oh,
market, it
true.
doesn't have to be the real estate market. It can be anything to do with any businesses in the market.
The buyers don't care if you're number one. The buyers care about what you're going to do for them. If you can show them that you deliver an amazing experience, if you can show them that you're a local area expert, if you can show them that you have multiple strategies and that you're going to be able to customize the experience to what they're looking for, that's 1,000 times more important to them. They want to know that you have time for them. They want to know when that fear crops up that you're going to answer their questions and you're going to reassure them as they go through that process. So it's definitely not just about you being the number one, but it is about your depth of knowledge on the area. It is about your depth of knowledge on the process. And it really is about the customer service experience that we deliver. The more we put the client on a pedestal, the more we're focused on the value we give them, the stronger our businesses are going to grow. No question about it.
So Nick, if I want to spend 16 weeks becoming a buyer master, we have listing mastery, and obviously a lot of people have gone through that, but really I want to understand the buy side from start to finish, from the lead generation to the buyer consultation to offer
The offer
presentation.
consultation,
Yeah,
big
if
one
right. If
today.
I want to understand that at the highest level, like I want to sell 40, 50 homes a year working with buyers, maybe understand the showing agent model a little bit better. What is the program that you teach? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Buyer Business Accelerator is exactly about that. It's about the process. It's about growing the business. It's about getting enough buyers in your pipeline to meet your goals. So let me tell you, this is a class that's going to go through all different aspects with the people who join it. We're going to talk about lead gen. We're going to talk about qualification. We're going to talk scripts, because if you're not sure what to say when it comes to the getting the showing agreement signed or the buyer agency agreement signed, we're going to go deep into it. We're going to get into every objection they give you. Of course, we're going to talk a lot about the offer consultation, because here's the thing. Some sellers still think that we are in 2000 or 2020. Some buyers think we're in 2009. So we've got to bridge that gap between where those expectations are and where the reality of our market is. And we got to do it while staying on their side. So we focus a lot about how we give value in that way. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on giving them an unreal customer experience. If you want to grow the SOI, if you want repeat, you want referral business, then we've got to make sure that experience is amazing. And we definitely want to make sure that we are delivering it, really not winging it, but having a complete plan on how we make sure that they walk away going, wow, working with Nick was different than the agent I used last time, or I wouldn't call anybody else but him when it's time to move. Because why? I trust him, and I know we went through this process and I didn't end up in a bad situation. And I understood exactly what we did every single step along the way. So definitely an important piece. I will say this with this class, whether you're looking to sell 40 or 50 buyers, or you're just thinking, you know what, 4 more buyers this year would even really change my business, we are going to teach you exactly how to get there. If you're a team leader and you've got a group of buyers underneath you, you should be in this class or have those agents in this class, because there's no doubt their efficiency is going to increase. And of course, if you've got a team of 5 and each one sells 2 more homes this year, now I'm going to tell you, a lot of people have taken this have sold 10, 12 more homes,
Yeah.
but just pretend it's 2 per agent. It's going to make a major impact on your
Yeah.
team alone.
I know there's a lot of teams and brokerages that put their buyers agents through Buyer Business Accelerator because
Yep.
it's so buyer focused for the 16 weeks. So if you want to spend 16 weeks building your buyer business, I mean, everything from start to finish, then this is without question the course to be in. When I look at the courses at Glover U, this is the only one that is 100% focused on buyers. If you want information on the program, just text the word buyer to 55444. Doesn't commit you to it. It just gets you the information on it. Text the word buyer to 55444. That'll get you all the details. That'll also share with you, how you sign up. It shares with you everything that we're covering in the 16 weeks together. And I will tell you, when I think about like just even, the agents that specialize in working with buyers on my team, there's no other person in the industry that I would trust him with other than Nick. That's his wheelhouse inside and out. So if you're looking to increase your buyer business, this is the one for you. Text the word buyer to 55444. Nick, any last words?
This class can change your life in 2025. No doubt about it. If you're on the edge, I know there's some agents out there that are even thinking right now, is this the right business for me? It's a little harder this year. Yes, it is. What you need is a step-by-step plan of attack in order to grow your business. And that's exactly. So if you're on the teetering on the edge, if you're thinking about it, if you're not sure, take this class. You're not only going to get the information, you're going to get put into our group Facebook, and that's going to absolutely be a one-way ticket to ask me any question you need. You want some direct coaching? This is a great way to get it just by simply getting in the private Facebook group. Not only will I answer all your questions in that group, but all the other people that are in there that have taken the class in the past typically will jump in and have amazing things to put in just the same as well. It's a great community, and I definitely want you guys out there to join and get involved, because you are going to sell more homes in 2025 by doing so.
There you go. You heard it from the man himself. By the way, this is our final winter webinar. Although we did add a webinar on Friday that's specifically for 76 Hard. So if you've been hearing the buzz about the 76 Hard program, just go back to gloveru.com/webinar. You can sign up for that free webinar on Friday. Other than that, if you're looking to take your business to the next level on the buy side, get in Nick's program. I promise you won't be disappointed. Let's go kick some butt the rest of the week, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.